The panel that we're going to talk about here is how to win. And what does winning mean? So we first all know, and like Omer showed us just before, we're not talking about financially winning, right? Or else this would be a conference about cyber in Israel. In bio, winning means different things. And we're going to talk about what winning means on 4 different levels. First of all, from a startup perspective, from an investor perspective on what a winner actually is. And then for our industry of tech bio or AI and pharma or technology and pharma. And then fourth is what Israel needs to do to be a winning ecosystem and a top 10 ecosystem in the world. So let's start with the company perspective. Yael, I think you see all deal flow in Israel on all aspects, both at Entrée, but also before at AION and elsewhere. So when you envision a winner in the tech for bio space, what does that winner look like in 5 years from now? Does that mean they get Series A or B funding? Does that mean that a first-in-human trial? What does that winning actually look, an exit? What does that winning look like?
So first, thank you for having this meeting happen. And thank you, Mati, for inviting me. Without a bit of cynicism, I think we're in the best field that is health. For me, winning is when we can bring therapies to patients in need. That's winning in our field. To try to envision a new life for a patient or a population, for longevity, for any disease. And I really had the privilege in the past to see through, as an investor, children receiving treatments and changing their course of life. So that's a win. And when that happens, it usually, not always, but usually comes with a financial upside. So envisioning a company built today for a fund, again, there are other people who look at the field differently, will show us financial upside for the company, that it receives a significant seed after us and a significant Series A after that. And that the company in a disciplined way grew from envisioning a product to building a therapy that is going to reach a patient.
So it's all about the patients and their health. That's the way.
It's all about the patients, but when you build a company correctly, then you financially predict what is going to happen and how much you need in order to bring it to the patients.
Excellent.
So how much do you need for a seed to bring it to a year from IND? And how much do you need for a Series A to bring it to a place that they have first-in-human data that the larger funds can then come and put the relevant capital to bring it to the clinic.
So let's get a little provocative here. Vered. You know, Curie.bio invests in therapeutics. In this emerging field of AI and technology for bio, can you see a winning company that doesn't build a therapeutic, that doesn't actually build a drug?
Well, in the life science, yes. Specifically for therapeutics, you have to have something that a patient takes in order to win in that space, both financially and for the greater good of the patient. I think, at least what we do in Curie, and it was said here in the previous panel, AI is an enabler of how we do the things. And for Curie specifically, because of the operating model it has, AI is a very good enabler on the drug, but also on how you mature a company. So you have to be lean and mean. Yeah. And using AI, leveraging it, it's how we progress, because at the end of the day, the more value you create faster, that's how you're gonna get faster to patient. And the upside is higher financially, and then this money we can reinvest.
Excellent.
And create this flywheel.
So it's very integrated.
It has to be.
So Isaac, on that point, and you know, maybe we could stay with provocative, what do the losers look like? I mean, you're looking in Europe, you're seeing, you saw at IATI probably a bunch of great startups apply and a bunch of bad founders apply with their startups. So, you know, what's a tip you can give to the startups here that want to build a tech bio or AI pharma startup, like that you can tell them, listen, let's avoid, you know, instead of waiting until we sit and review your application without telling you, you know, what's the tip you can tell that maybe they wouldn't hear outside of this room?
Well, thank you for giving me the fun question.
Yeah.
What does loser look like? And we see this happen quite often. And
The
part of that,
mistakes.
of course, is the risk in this sector in particular. Some of that loss is simply some things don't pan out, and if they all pan out, you're probably not pushing the boundaries sufficiently. So, but with that caveat aside, I think one of the things that we consistently saw and see in the startup realm is an insufficient understanding of the ultimate buyer of the innovation that you're seeking to build.
Who's going to pay for it?
Who's going to pay for it? How does this actually get integrated in the context of a regulatory and reimbursement system? And to answer the question provocatively, a lack of a quality answer to the question, who cares? And I don't mean that flippantly, meaning who cares, because we all care about patient outcomes, et cetera, or we would choose easier sectors to work in. But I mean, who owns the problem that I am actually solving? Because if you can answer that question, you have a nice indication of who cares financially, both on the cost and on the benefit side, to have it solved.
So those are the questions you need to answer in order
Those are
to
the
be a winner.
questions. Exactly.
Excellent.
And if you don't have a sense of that from day one or day two, that doesn't mean you can't adjust that answer. The chances of success are significantly lower. And that's a real predictor of outcome that we've seen over the years.
Great. And so now we're going to go to the investor side, and we'll start with you, Yael. What are mistakes that investors make that help to fail a company? And we could talk about other investors, right? Ones that you've seen anonymously out there, but you know, what's a mistake that investors actually make that help to fail a company?
So we'll start now and end in a week if we talk about it in general. But I'll say what happens in Israel, okay? And we see it quite a lot. That since there isn't a lot of available capital here, the rounds are very small. They're not planned well. The use of proceeds isn't perfect, and you don't get to the value inflection point. A company is very happy from a round of $3 million that gets them nowhere. They're a great team. Let's assume it's a great team. It's a great product. Everything is moving in the right direction, but they didn't plan well for the risk mitigation and where they need to get in order for the next inflection point to happen. So I think from an investor perspective, we compromise a lot because we want things to move. There are a lot of safes in Israel that are insufficient from a capital to bring in biotech a drug to the market. You can't have a round that's $2 million. It doesn't work. And especially now with the dollar shekel being so challenging, the runway is even shorter, right? So I think from what we're seeing, and now that we're coming with fresh capital to the market, then it's also an opportunity because they're stuck and the valuations go low. So it's a lose-lose situation for the investor and the companies.
So, Veled, let's talk a little bit, you know, if you can put on your hat of working a lot with early stage founders, both at Velocity as well as now with Curie. What do founders complain about investors that they should do better instead of just writing them a check, right, and saying yes? But what would a founder say that investors should do better at in our role at building companies in order to build winners?
So I think it's support, and support can wear many hats, and there is a very huge spectrum. And this is why, as an entrepreneur, when you choose a VC, and I think, Yael, to your point, it's very important here in Israel, it's not just money. So sometimes people talk on toxic money, non-toxic money, but it's even more than that, because you need the experience of the VC, even just from the market pulse, to help you guide where you should go. Now, in biotech, unlike high tech, you don't get to pivot, really. So these insights that VCs can have, let's say even if they're not scientific, but their pulse on the market is better, can help you know how to navigate maybe better, faster than what you have otherwise. And I think the other way that they're looking for support is network, because VC are very network, and especially again in Israel, we have some challenges in talent in some aspect when you grow a company. And if it's a specialized VC with, let's say, builder that used to be, drug developers, help there. We sit day and day, or especially when I was in Velocity, and we do it at Curie as well. You sit with them on the plan to the teeth of the experiment. If you have that expertise, you should pay it forward. But with that, if you don't know, don't say.
So Isaac, we're gonna talk about the investor side, but also segue to Tech.Bio as an industry. And are we seeing, in Israel, we see a lot of investors say we're investing in technology for pharma, for biotech. But I think in Europe, it's been usually more conservative as an approach. Are you seeing a change in that field and an emerging group of Tech.Bio investors in Europe as well?
Yes and no. So we are seeing an emergence of interest and some new funds being raised in that space, or existing biotech funds that are repositioning into that space. I think the challenge, though, remains, again, to be provocative. I mean, an investor loses money until they sell the asset that they've invested in. Everything is a loss and an unrealized gain until the moment where you sell. And so the real challenge that we're seeing in Europe, but it's a challenge globally as well, is the complexity of exit markets and exit opportunities for portfolio companies. And what we're seeing there, therefore, is interest in Tech.Bio. What remains to be seen is that interest genuine conviction about the space, or is that interest because of the challenges in the biotech more broadly and the temptation by investors to see in Tech.Bio opportunities for returns that they don't necessarily believe or see confirmed in the numbers on the traditional biotech side. So one of the main tasks and partnerships that we're building precisely is between pharma industry partners and biotech VCs, including those positioning into Tech.Bio, believing that while the VCs have a clear role to play, if they are unable to partner effectively with pharma companies and pharma industry and understand what they are looking for, even though they might be raising funds in the Tech.Bio space, that capital will not actually effectively flow, particularly into early stage Tech.Bio companies. So it really is about creating, if you will, financial pull factors that are able to reassure and de-risk in order to open up the taps of the capital that is sitting there in the fund, but isn't necessarily actually flowing into the portfolio companies at the rate it needs to.
So actually, I want to jump on that point you just mentioned right now and ask Vered. I mean, you're seeing, you know, pharmaceutical company or Tech.Bio companies, AI companies for the pharma industry, but they have a hard time penetrating into pharma on their side. So what does a startup need to do better in order to actually and effectively sell to pharma and have an offering where they can actually bring to pharma not just a drug but also a technology?
So I think they first need to understand their customer, okay? A pharma is not a small biotech and is not a VC. It's a different type of sell and what they need, right? So their value chain is different, let's say, from a small biotech value chain. And I think ultimately those pharma companies seeing hundreds of these AI or tech-enabled or what have you, and they need to understand why is this better, right? Not just different, it has to be different, like my previous partner taught me. And you need to show it by numbers, because even if you got the champion in the R&D team or the BD team, they need to then kind of champion it upwards in order to get budget for it. So you really need to work with them and build the case for them and try to understand where are you saving money or where are you creating, because a lot of the time people think this is just a cost bucket, but if you do it right, it's actually a multiplier.
So it's about differentiation, finding your champion, empowering them and helping them, as well as also making sure everything is substantive in numbers.
Yeah, you have to have the data.
Okay, great. So let's now take it all home to Israel. And how can Israel be a winner? Not in the World Cup, because let's first get on the stage there. In, you know, Yael, we're not yet a top 10 biotech leader in the world. Not yet. We have a plan for how to get there within 10 years and a lot of optimism that we will be there. But what is from your perspective, the number one structural change that needs to happen in Israel in order for us to actually achieve that vision and be a top 10 ecosystem in the world?
So I guess someone laughed at me a few months ago that I don't see the half full cup. I see like the 10th of the cup when it's full. I'm very optimistic, really, just because I have the privilege to speak to the scientists in the academia here and understand the depth and the complexity of the science that they're doing. So I think from a scientific perspective, we're definitely a top 10 country. And how do we bring that to be a top 10, and also our hospitals, right? Sheba, Hadassah, patents per capita. We're so good in thinking. And then it comes to execution. I think the way I see us going there is bringing the talent pool that is now missing from abroad, compromising on a lot of equity and talent locally at the moment, bringing CSOs abroad at the moment for some of the fields, bringing a lot of, and it depends, right? In small molecules, it's one thing, and in xRNA, it would be a different thing. It's
But experienced talent.
highly experienced talent that can work very, very close to our teams and make sure that they don't move a millimeter from the disciplined development plan that they have, if not needed, also from a capital perspective.
And are you building your new fund, Entrée.bio, are you building it to be able to address that structural gap?
So what we did in Entrée.bio is a lot of learning from what I saw in Middelmann. We had, we sold a few companies there. We sold Arcule, we sold others. We invested in companies that we IPO'd in the NASDAQ, Kiras, Elox, that was Israeli, Allergen, and others. And what we decided to do is that I'm actually the only employee here, except the back office, CFO, PRIR. The rest are Boston-based, so some of you met Michelle at the Biomed. She is an ex-executive from Eli Lilly. She's a development person in her background, a computational, she's a quantum chemist, whatever that means. For those of you who love electrons, she's your friend. And we brought Thaminder Ramanayake, who is an ex-BD. He was the global BD from Sanofi. And we brought John Maraganore, who was the co-founder and CEO of Alnylam Therapeutics, which IPO'd for, it's now worth 54 billion. He left when it was 25 billion. So we brought someone who's the best scientist I could think of to have around the table, the best business development executive that could be around the table, and someone who's been there, who's been a CEO, who's fired half of his team actually as a part of the Alnylam growth. We're all celebrating it, but when he speaks to our CEOs, he understands the pain of their journey better than all of us. We're all with operational experience, and we have 20 advisors that work with us as a part of our team that advise us through the development, and also, of course, the IAON partnership, that the understanding that to create Israel as the best go-to place in biotech, it takes a village, and we're not going to do it alone. So
Thank you. So Vered, you have in your title ex-US, right? But you're working for a US-based, one of the best US-based investors out there from Boston, looking for science globally. And there's a notion that Israel is over-scienced and underfunded, kind of like Yael said. So, what do we need to do better in Israel? And, maybe you would agree with the fact that there's a misconception of ourselves, a lack of self-perception, that we think we're better than we are. So what do we need to do in order to be better here in Israel?
So I think there is what I do in order to, and then what I think, my opinion of what Israel should do, or us as an ecosystem. So I think from a scientific, because Curie does a lot of venture formation, yes, we have great science, but our scientist PI, the one who wants to be translational, not everyone wants to, but the one who wants, and really they need to listen a little bit better how you close the gap. Because it is a bridge that you need to, between what I do in my academia, in my lab to get a Nature paper, then what would get me closer to the clinic and a drug to a patient. And it doesn't happen in a day. Some are better listeners than others. And it starts with education like anything, and we need to start putting it into a curriculum for the medical, for the researchers. But I think this is that, because sometimes it's just these two experiments that are missing to take you from here to there. From a venture creation perspective, later stage is a bit different. I think from an ecosystem, we just need to work harder and focus. VCs need to come back and invest here. We can't say we have the best science and our VCs are not with us all the time. The government, we saw 30%, needs to put a little bit more into it. It is capital intensive, but it takes time to build, and it will pay off because the talent, the research is here. If we did it in cyber, we can do it in biotech.
Excellent.
I think that's a well-identified gap, the small gap of translation in the academia to make it an investable asset. And 8400 with Sam Moed are actually building a translational institute that's supposed to do exactly that. And I think when we have that in Israel, I think that could be a game changer here.
So Isaac, are you a believer also? I mean, you're looking from Europe, you're looking at Israel. Like, what do we need to do? What's the best advice you can give us in Israel on what we need to change in order to be competitive with the top European ecosystems out there?
Everybody loves the foreigner who comes and gives advice. So I'm a believer. I wouldn't be here otherwise. I mean that genuinely. I would say that I think so one, it's fascinating what you both have just said. I hear day in, day out in Europe. We need to get much better at entrepreneurial skills, realizing that these are different skill sets, et cetera. That's fascinating, because if we think of Israel and Europe in the scientific context, we think you guys have it all figured out. So it's interesting to hear this from you all. Two, I think that there is a platform play here, and I think this is where Israel really has a strength. If I can cite another ecosystem that I think is undervalued and underestimated in this one. If you look at the Taiwanese ecosystem, for example, there are similarities there. Tough neighborhood, need to be pragmatic, building partnerships that are based on execution, strong med tech and AI and data background, excellent hospital data, smart hospitals, longitudinal data, et cetera, and a desire to position biotech as a novel application. The question is, can you actually take what works here in what is a hyper-dense, high-performing ecosystem in Israel in some respects, and can you actually turn that into value creation as a small ecosystem that is dense, as a place where global players are able to engage? And I think that's probably going to be the key for Israel in the biotech space, if I can be so bold, is to say, yes, this is a program that is government funded and otherwise for benefit of Israeli originating research. But in reality, if you are a foreign investor and a foreign researcher, this is the place where we want you to build a company and help us learn how to be aggressive in the positive sense in that creation of value in biotech. That's really what it takes. The best way to learn is to welcome, to learn from others, and to have that positive spillover effect in terms of knowledge and capital. And that's, of course, a very challenging play that's linked also to government policies when it comes to ways of creating value here in Israel.
Great, thank you. So we're just going to end here in a rapid fire, one word, one sentence. Digital health. Is it dead in the age of Claude or ChatGPT, or can we actually build winners in digital health? Yael.
I think digital health will thrive in the next few years.
Thank you.
Same, winners.
Isaac?
Yes, if reimbursable and actually integrated into care pathways.
Secondly, okay, so last question here. What is going to be the winning company from Israel, 2026 or 2027, that you wish you're invested in or already invested in? What's the company you're most excited about?
Coltech.
Coltech.
So first, we're biased. We're both getting carry and Coltac, so I'll spare anything I'm involved with. Maybe I'll say in optimism that there are a few big rounds and big M&As that are on the table now in Israel, and we might end 2026 in a very high note here. So that's
That's
good.
very cool. And Isaac?
I'm going to use my joker here, so sorry.
There you go. All right. So thank you again. And we're going to end on one last optimistic note, is that we're talking about building up this ecosystem 10 years into the future. Let's all remember that 40 years ago, Kendall Square in Boston was swampland. And because they took a long-term approach to build up the ecosystem, forward integrate, build up the experience, bring in the capital, it's now the mecca of our industry. So like our country was built in 80 years, we've been through what, 10, 15 wars? I lost count over the last 3 years. If you build it, and if you will it, it is no dream. So thank you very much, and we will make this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.